Jury selection begins today for the trial of Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes, accused of a multi-million-dollar scheme to defraud investors. Holmes was originally charged in June of 2018, but now we're learning of new accusations she's launching against her former boyfriend and COO. Rebecca Jarvis has more.
Feel like you can get a fair trial here?
This morning, as jury selection in her criminal fraud trial begins, bombshell allegations by Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes made public, alleging emotional, physical, and sexual abuse at the hands of former boyfriend and COO, Sunny Balwani.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Recently unsealed court documents revealing Holmes's attorneys plan to allege at trial she was the victim of a decade of abuse. The court filings alleging Holmes and Balwani had an abusive, intimate partner relationship, that he exerted psychological and emotional control over her over their 10-year relationship, that he allegedly controlled what Holmes ate, how she dressed, how much money she could spend, and who she could interact with. Sunny Balwani adamantly denies these allegations, according to court documents.
This is a huge deal. It is an absolute bombshell. Elizabeth Holmes is essentially alleging a decade-long history of systematic abuse by Balwani in the form of he controlled every aspect of their relationship.
We will change our lives and our world.
Holmes, once the youngest female self-made billionaire, known for her distinctive voice,
Comprehensive laboratory tests from a tiny sample
and black turtlenecks, set out to change healthcare with her blood testing technology. But now she stands accused of a multi-million-dollar fraud. The Department of Justice alleging Holmes misled patients, doctors, and investors.
I know that we made so many mistakes.
No one from Theranos ever called me to apologize. That's the least you can do when you mess up so badly. Not okay.
Holmes, who recently gave birth to her first child just 1 month ago, continues to maintain her innocence.
The prosecution is going to try to poke holes in this defense. They're allowed to have their expert interview Elizabeth Holmes, and likely that expert is going to say that she did not suffer from this type of abuse or this syndrome. Maybe some of these allegations are true, what happened to her, but it actually didn't affect her mental state.
The trial is set to run for the next 14 weeks. The judge has built time into the schedule so that Elizabeth can care for her newborn baby, and will be following all the courtroom action, talking to witnesses and experts every step of the way on the new season of the Dropout podcast. Diane?
Looking forward to listening. Rebecca Jarvis, thank you. And let's bring in ABC News contributor Shauna Lloyd for more on this. Shauna, thanks for being here. What do you think of this defense strategy?
It's definitely an interesting one in this particular case, because what they're trying to attack is her ability to have formed the requisite intent to defraud. That's really what this defense is about. And it's very interesting. You don't often see this type of move with this particular type of case.
Now, what do you think the prosecution's response to all of this is going to be?
The prosecution is going to point very heavily to the statement she made, that this is not just puffery. This was someone who, even if she was in some form of an abusive relationship, that it didn't actually affect her intent, that she was aware and that she was knowledgeable and intended to make statements that were misleading and fraudulent in nature.
Now, there's a pretty long track record here for Elizabeth Holmes. Whether you listen to The Dropout or you've read about the story in other places, I mean, people are digging back into her past to college, in some cases even high school. So given how much of a track record there is here, how substantial do you think this argument is by the defense, and how strong can the prosecution's response be when they try to look at her past before she started dating Sunny Balwani?
It's interesting that she is such a public figure and she's made so many statements, appearances, and she's someone that was very much in the public eye. So that gives the state a lot of fodder to go through and a lot of things that they can use to combat the statements that the defense is going to make. The defense is going to probably pull more personal information out. I don't know what type of evidence they're going to use to corroborate this allegation and this defense that she was under this type of mental influence influence and that she did not form this intent to mislead. She wasn't aware. It was all her partner's doing. So it'll be interesting to see what they bring in. But the state has a lot of information on Miss Holmes because she just was such a public figure. She made so many statements on her independently that it'll be interesting to see how the defense tries to substantiate their claim.
And we're looking at some footage of her arriving to the courtroom this morning. Do you think as we watch this trial play out, will she take the stand?
That's always a conundrum for defense attorneys, because typically as a defense attorney, your tendency is not to want to open up your client to that line of questioning. Once she opens the door, the prosecution will be able to bring in her previous statements and other things that can be extremely damaging. Also, your client may or may not be persuasive to the jury. You don't know what their appeal is and how the jury is going to take what they're saying. So it's a very dangerous move. But in this particular type of defense, when you're stating that you were under undue influences by your partner, the jury's going to want to hear. They want to hear the experiences you had, and they're going to want to hear how it is he was able to exert this type of influence over her life. And so I think it'll be very hard to put this defense forward without having her come to the stand.
And so how important do you think today's jury selection is? What is each side hoping for?
Jury selection is going to be probably a little extended in this particular case because there is so much media surrounding the company, surrounding herself and her partner and the claims that she made. So you're going to see the state that's looking for people that are already, are open-minded, because every juror should be open-minded. They should not have any preconceived notions. But in this particular case, you have topics that create such strong feelings in individuals. Healthcare, whether or not they were told something fraudulently, investors who are out of money, patients who had the effects of these tests that were not accurate happen to them. So you're going to have a lot of questions about how people feel about those topics, because they're topics that produce a lot of strong feelings in jurors. And you're going to want to know that your juror is neutral and is able to not be on one side or the other.
And Shauna, we again, just as you were talking, we had video of Elizabeth Holmes arriving to the courthouse. She stood in front of the press, was asked a whole series of questions, but didn't answer. But again, still stood there in front of the cameras. And there's an interesting dynamic with this case with a lot of questions about her voice. If you remember, she was always talked about as having this very deep voice. Questions have been raised as to whether that was genuine or not. Do you think there's going to be an effort by her attorneys to not have her speak in court?
That's going to be very interesting. There was a lot of talk about the tenor of her voice and whether or not it was an actual tone or whether it was something that was projected. All of those things are going to suddenly have a different meaning before the jury, because if you're someone that's going to project a tone just to be memorable that wasn't in fact the tone of your voice, that speaks to your credibility. So all of these are things that people are going to be comparing in their mind to the image that they have of her. And that's what jurors are going to be doing. They're looking to determine if she's credible or not, and her voice is going to be one of those significant factors. Her defense attorneys are going to try to make sure that they maintain the image that this is someone that was in this relationship, that these things were in fact true. She believed what she said. She did not have the intent to defraud anyone. So you're going to see them be very careful about the image that she's portraying, including how she's speaking and whether she speaks at all. But she's still the client, and we have to remember that if a client determines that they want to testify, they have the right to testify. Your attorney is there to guide you, but it doesn't mean that they have the ultimate decision.
All right, Shauna Lloyd, ABC News contributor and attorney. We appreciate it, Shauna. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.